from one. Yes, good. And it is cut and paste from parliamentary resolutions that was passed in Germany with the support of all mainstream parties. It is already interesting to make a distinction because also in the procedural perspective in Italy is at the moment a proposal by one parliamentary members of party that supports the government, but it is not that broad alliances of all parties going from the Greens to the Alternative für Deutschland that has supported the anti-Semite type of weaponizations of the term in Germany. And the difference I see are also related with who is supporting this type of weaponizations in the two countries. I think in Italy, it has been clearly right-wing newspapers and sometimes mainstream newspapers, but with more constraints. In Germany, it has been all main newspapers, including the Taz, which is the equivalent, more or less, of Il Manifesto, which has been extremely vicious in a series of campaigns against events of the protest. For instance, against the Congress for Palestine, the Taz participated in a sort of witch hunt. In all types of articles, the Taz cites Judith Butler as the witch of the anti-Semitism. Paradoxically, this is also affecting Jewish people who opposes Israel. This has been, I think, a main difference because in Italy, not since the very, very first beginning of the protest in October 2023, but soon thereafter, also many important actors in civil society, trade unions, peace movements, Catholic environments, workers have participated in the protest. And this didn't allow to isolate the movements. There are always attempts, but it remained more clearly right-wing type of attempt and attacks. So that nowadays it is quite clear that on the left there are reactions against this type of weaponizations. Similarities there are as well. For instance, while Jewish people with a universalistic perspective of the religion as a diasporic religion and identity have taken critical positions towards the weaponizations of anti-Semitism because it affects them, first of all. Many official associations of the Jewish community in Italy have had no constraints in allying officially with the far right in a series of events in attacking pro-Palestinian activists as anti-Semite. It remained quite sporadic. There have been a moment like recently in which violence has been mobilized by the far right, sometimes also with some exponent of this type of official community, but it has never reached the level of the German case where there are counter mobilizations protected by the police against the mobilizations of smaller, in general, social movements in solidarity with Gaza. And there has been a very different implementation of it. This is important. Maybe we can talk about it later. But what happened in Germany is what I called in the book the bureaucratizations of the fight against anti-Semitism, which has implied the creations of different type of institutions and organizations that participated in the singling out of individuals, so personal harassment of people, through the collections of information on their activities, even online. The most recent witch hunt campaign is against the president of the Technische Universität in Berlin, which has been accused of anti-Semitism because she liked a post in which there was a picture with one protesters making a parallel between Nazism and Netanyahu's government. And in this process, newspapers have participated in a much more homogeneous way than in the Italian case, but also the Commission for Jewish Life and against anti-Semitism, which is a large group of people that are appointed by not only the federal state, but all state and all institutions like universities have this type of commissioning, and have practically nothing else to do than to attack people who are protesting. By definitions, their role is to coordinate their actions with the Israeli groups, pressure groups in Germany, and the Israeli authorities. Plus, there is a huge investment in something that you mentioned also, apropos Gaspari law, in financing research on anti-Semitism to groups which, like RIAS or the Amedeo Antonio Stiftung, formerly devoted to anti-racism, that spend time in also some type of doxing, and especially in creating databases in which each actions like posting from the river to the sea is counted as an anti-Semitic event. So there have been also research done on the ways in which these data are collected through a total overlapping of anti-Zionism, critique of Israel, and the ideas of anti-Semitism, in order to produce a moral panic. That is, in order to produce not only the idea, which could be right, that anti-Semitism is still a problem, but in order to create artificially fake news through statistics which are there to support the idea that anti-Semitism is mainly a problem created by the left and mainly a problem created by migrants. So the so-called imported anti-Semitism, which connects it to migrant people, and in this sense present the German society with 1/4 of the electors voting for a really anti-Semite party like Alternative für Deutschland, as instead clean of any type of guilt.
Thank you very much, Donatella, for this very comprehensive answer. I imagine there is much more to say. I just wanted to mention the fact that the tendencies that you underlined, I think, both in terms of following the activists creating a data set. Well, this is something that Israel has always done. And I remember from my PhD fieldwork that in one of the interviews that I was doing with an anti-Zionist activist from Tayush, he told me that once after 10 years of activism, a guy came to his door and with a folder of pictures, files, information, and this guy was part of an Israeli NGO, Ragavim or one of those. I don't remember the name, but he basically changed his mind, and so he was in a sort of trying to make amend for the mistakes, and so he brought all this information to the people that he followed for years. So also there was the address of the school of the kids. So the type of information that they managed to gather was huge. So this is something that actually also Israeli security, both government and para-government organizations are very good at doing. And also when you mentioned the bureaucratization of the German system, I think we are starting to see it here. Of course, Gaspari proposal of law, it's a case, but on point. But also what we have seen with the proposal of insert members of the government, representative of the governments in the department council, if I'm not mistaken. So this is also in the direction on really create tools that increase the control within academia. I would like to continue with the questions, but I don't know if Aya is here. Otherwise, we go on with Claire.
Federica, apologies for interjecting. Aya
No,
is...
thank you.
Good morning. I just need 5 minutes and I will be with you, or 2 minutes.
Okay, no worries. So maybe we go ahead with Academics for Justice.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, here we have Alice with us. And I would like to ask you if you could tell us something more about this organization that was created to protect academic freedom in Germany, also in line probably with what Donatella already mentioned about the German context, and particularly how does the emergence of such a group organization relate to the current situation within the German state?
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us to take part in this panel as well. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. So Academics for Justice, we formed at the protest camp, which stood at the LMU from May 2024 until November 2024, which was in part a response to the kind of silence, basically, the spiral of silence in academia in Munich and in Germany more broadly. Especially in Bayern, especially in Bavaria. And we were originally Academics for a Ceasefire. Then we were Academics for Palestine. And then finally, we changed our name to Academics for Justice. And I think this also kind of speaks to the culture of repression, basically including the name Palestine in any group or organization. You immediately expose yourself to accusations of anti-Semitism off the bat for mentioning the word Palestine. So we changed our name to Academics for Justice. We are mainly early career academics and scholars from across institutions based in Munich and beyond, but predominantly in Munich, across disciplines as well. We're mainly migrants. We have, I think, 2 Germans now, which is proportionally very small. And this is kind of reflective again of the broader context in Germany, that the movement is basically being led by people in the most precarious positions, migrants, people without permanent job positions, people without citizenship. And we have, by the way, a good cohort of Italians. A few of you are, I think, watching on Twitch now. So yes. But I think building on what Professor Della Porta was saying just now as well, I think another key difference is precisely this, the complete absence of Germans, like in the movement, and the complete absence of not only senior professors, but I mean, anyone at any level of seniority within the universities. And they're just, I mean, silence across the board, which we've kind of witnessed here in a very extreme way in Munich. Also, the group is largely anonymous because it is very, very risky to have your name, associated with any form of activism, even if it's very simply tied to international law and work on human rights. In the current context, this is also a huge risk. So most of our members are completely anonymous. And we basically have kind of 4 basic principles and aims of the group, one of which is to organize some kind of educational events and to create some space for discussion and dialogue, which is not coming from the top down in the universities, let's put it that way. To kind of highlight and bolster support that's already available and create more support for students and academics from conflict zones, to ensure that our universities respect international law and human rights, and to hold our universities to account for the repression that they're doing, as well as their breaches of international law. And we try to have these very basic aims that should be very uncontroversial, right? Sticking to international law and human rights, not even mentioning Palestine explicitly in those aims. And this was designed, obviously, to kind of navigate the series of booby traps when it comes to anti-Semitism accusations, because it's so dangerous. We haven't managed to avoid that anyway, even with these kind of basic aims. The work we do is basically predominantly focused on organizing events. Largely, we have to do them incognito. So we can't do them in our name, but we have managed to organize some events in universities and outside the university as well. And we've worked on so far 2 reports, and a 3rd report is cooking now and will be released soon. But we work on this precisely also because of the context. It's really important to come to present evidence, hard evidence, and to speak in the language which works so well in Germany of neutrality and just pointing at the basic facts. That's why we have these reports, because you can't argue with that. That was our kind of thought process. But yeah, this has still led to like huge repression. For example, we tried to organize, and I'd be happy to talk about the reports and the details of the reports and what we found later on, if you would like that. But for example, we tried to organize a dialogue event on our first report, which contained some very clear breaches of international law. And basically 30 people got detained, got accused of, including myself, got accused of organizing a demonstration, charged with trespassing at their own university, banned for 24 hours from entering campus. This is, I think, is quite unusual to charge your own staff. I haven't heard about that happening in Italy yet, and perhaps I'm wrong. But this is what's happening in Munich. So I would say what's happening in terms of repression in Germany in many ways is not unique when we look from the top down. There's nothing unique in the regard in terms of it's extreme, but what the state's doing, what the university administration is doing, but what is absolutely unique is the silence of our colleagues, the lack of support across the board, not only at the senior level, but also at the level of very early career people. So, the level of isolation of the work that we're doing. So we're basically now trying to, if pressure from inside is very difficult to achieve, we are trying to build networks outside of Germany and to bring our findings to audiences outside of Germany to put external pressure on. And I think I went off on a bit of a tangent in terms of the question, so I apologize, but yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry if I think I said your name wrong, but since you are
No.
also working in Anonymous, maybe I confused those who are listening to us. So there might be also bright side in making mistakes with names. Thank you very much for also share with us your experience. That I mean, I think it's very also unique in the US. Maybe it's on a similar vein, but the level of repression that we have seen these years in Germany, it was something that we haven't seen since a long time, at least in Europe. And in this regard, I have just a brief question. You mentioned that there is no participation of Germans, which is and instead migrants and racialized people tend to participate more in this kind of activities. But I was, and also, I mean, like senior professors, usually they don't that much. But what about students?
They don't. Not
They
that
don't
much.
in
They
general.
don't.
Okay. And what about students, which instead in Italy have been a very big, they were the main forces and the main actor of the movement?
Oh, the students also here in Munich, I can speak for at least have been amazing. But again, we can largely say the same kind of in terms of the demographics. It's largely migrants. It's largely people of color. There are very few proportionally Germans within the group. That holds also for the students. So again, and in terms of the student group, these are really the most precarious position of all, who have done the hardest work and the most work in Munich and across Germany. I think that would be my observation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we go ahead with Aya. I hope that now you are settled and you can join us in the conversation. I introduced you before, but if you want to say some more words about your experience, particularly we would like to ask you your journey, so how it was to arrive in Italy and this transition from the academy in Gaza to Italy, and how this shaped also your perspective as a scholar. And since we are talking about university and within university, what do you think international and the Italian university can and should do to support the right to education for Palestinian students and scholars, both those still in Gaza and those in the diaspora?
Okay, good morning. I'm IHRA and I'm sorry for being late. I'm 24 years and I arrived to Italy just before 4 months from Gaza, and I was writing for Il Fatto Quotidiano as a journalist from Gaza. I covered the news, and then I get my scholarship in the University of Siena as a visitor researcher. And I focus on my research about the role of women in peace and security. Since I was in Gaza, I was so interested in this topic because I always believed in our role as a woman in peace and security, and in rebuilding also, peacemaking. So in Siena, my research I will focus about the trauma of forced displacement for women during the genocide, and I will study this trauma under the international law, because we always talking about physical damage, physical violations, but about this trauma, psychological trauma, we don't talk about it, and we don't consider it as a basic or important violations. And it's important to understand the trauma that the women in Gaza are experiencing, to know how we can rebuild our community again, because like we say in Arabic, the women, they are not the half of the community, they are the whole community. So yeah, it wasn't easy to come here. It was supposed to come to Italy since April 2024. but then Israeli closed the borders of Rafah, and then no student arrived to Italy since more than 1 year, and I was the first student who arrived to Italy after Israel closed Rafah border, according. So for me, it was like a dream because, okay, I have a scholarship, I have the right to move outside, but there is occupation, and this occupation will not allow you to go out. It wasn't just me. There is more than 5,000 students in Gaza with a scholarship fully funded outside Gaza, but they don't have a chance to go out. And the countries that they have a scholarship in it, they have to work a lot to evacuate them, and some countries they don't care, to be honest, about their studies, their education, and so on. So yeah, but I arrived here, and right now Italy evacuated more than 100 students after me. And there is another groups of students will arrive soon. If I want to talk about the education in Gaza, before the genocide, the literacy rate in Gaza was only just 2% of the population. And the dropout rate from the schools, universities was 0. And this proves that the people of Gaza are educated and value learning, even under siege. Our universities developed programs that competed internationally. Like our universities, they developed education program that it wasn't easy to develop it under this siege and under this a blockade on the educational system in Gaza. Now we demanding that like everything in Gaza was destroyed, our universities, the schools, and the education system in general. All of it have been destroyed by the occupation. So we lost a lot of our student, more than 19,000 student. We lost our teachers. All the universities in Gaza was destroyed. Just 5% of the numbers of the universities of the schools, sorry, in Gaza was like not damaged, not destroyed, and these 5% of these schools return right now as a shelter for the displacement families. What the international law can do, it's not easy to rebuild the education system in Gaza again because it's literally destroyed. I worked with the children in a tent. We as youth, we was trying to build a tent, and we educate the children in this tent. Not a formal and governmental education. It's not even recognized by the government. We was just trying to let the children be in the system, like to not forget the letters, the numbers, to support them at least. And these tend do nothing in the situation of education in Gaza. But at the same time, the student, the children, the families was so interested to involve their children in these classes. So if we want to talk about the children and their schools, it's like the international community have to support to rebuild our schools again and to rebuild our education system again. Right now, Israel trying to change the materials of our schools, because under the excuse of we teach our children tourism and blah blah blah. But who will go to check all of our materials? This is not true, because we see like what is going on. Another thing, if we want to talk about our student in the universities, I can say like the student in Gaza don't have any hope to continue on their education. Despite all of this, they are trying to continue. There was some campaign that allowed to some student to have internet electricity in Gaza to join to another universities abroad. And some of them, they graduated during the genocide, a little, like a few number of them. Because maybe they have electricity, they have internet. So it's so important to give the student in Gaza a chance to study outside, abroad. A lot of them, they have already a scholarship. So we have to pressure on the governments to evacuate them with the coordination of Israel. Second, after we be sure that the genocide is stopped, because until now it doesn't stop. What is the media trying to show? It's not the reality. Israel every day killed Palestinian in Gaza. After we be sure that the genocide is stopped, we have to rebuild our universities, students with the support, universities and schools with the support from the international community. Because we are really a people who take care about education. And if I want to mention something small, the first teachers in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in the Arabic countries, in like 50 and 60, they was Palestinian, who educate the student and the children in the Arab countries when the education systems was like they was trying to develop it, the Palestinian teachers. So it's so important to support the student in Gaza to find another scholarships outside, and it's so important to fund and support the universities and the schools inside Gaza, to rebuild our community again, at least. So yes, I just want to mention a small story. I was working in Khan Yunis school. It was a shelter for more than 5,000 people inside this school. And I was working with an international organization to approve the children some classes. In that time, there was no space for like any class in that university. All the class, they are full of displacement people. One of these families, the name of the father, he was Qusay. He said to me, okay, I'm going to leave this class when you have the time of the class in the morning, and then I will go back with my family to live in this class. Qusay, he was a literacy person. He is not educated, but because he know how much the education it's important for his children and for the children in Gaza, he gave us this space to educate that children, even in a small and weak ways and tools. And this is a small symbol about how much we take care about education and how much we are educated people and take care about this. If there is any question, I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you didn't hear me? Okay, now.
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Aya, for your for the stories that you shared, but also to point at the fact that yes, the genocide is continuing since we know that there was reached a ceasefire, but Israel broke it already several times. So I think it's very important to mention it and to remind that this is why it's still very relevant to talk about the complicity of universities with Israel and what we can actually do also from here on different levels. So thank you, and we are very glad that you're here and you managed to continue your academic path. So best of luck with that. Then if there are other questions, we will open the floor. But first we go with our last speakers, Nicola Perugini. And ciao, Nicola. I would like you to argue a bit and discuss with us again the IHRA definition of antisemitism. Now I tried a different spelling. And particularly as for Donatella, I would like to ask you, what do you think might be the implications for Italian university and how it is already, this definition is already being used internationally to constrain academic discourse on Palestine, and particularly how it relates to also your book and your last findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Federica. Yeah, first of all, Aya, welcome to Siena.
We don't really hear you. I mean, the volume is very low.
Can you hear me now?
Still?
Now is it better? Yes. Is it better now?
A bit.
Slightly better. Now, can you hear me? Is it better now?
Yes, it's better, but as loud as you can speak.
I'll try.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if it's something also related to the co-hosting options. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, well, first of all, welcome to Siena, my former alma mater. Ahla wa sahla. The IHRA in Italy and the Conferenza dei Rettori, the rectors adopting or going in that direction, and Gaspari. I think that, you know, every country has its own trajectory in terms of how it has adopted IHRA, the way in which the IHRA has functioned or is functioning. So we have to be very careful to the specific situations and country specifics. And that's what we try also to do in the book, Palestine and Western Academia, in which we have different contributions from different continents and different countries about the different trajectories, you know, analyzing how the IHRA operates in the US, where you have decades of consolidated repression, formal and informal, on the question of Palestine. The denial of Nakba is different than analyzing it in Australia or in countries like Italy or Germany. In Italy, it's very clear that the IHRA and its adoption is overlapping, which is now proposed mainly by the, as Donatella was saying, by the center-right, far-right. The IHRA has very clearly a function of purification for the post-fascist right, and I think that an organization like the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is formally dedicated to preserving and remembering the Holocaust, so a function of memory and memorialization, but that has turned since 2016 at least into a tool of international public diplomacy and politics, is the perfect combination in Italy, right? You have two fronts, two entities dedicated to the political weaponization of the memorialization of the Holocaust for two different reasons. In Italy, what you have is also a fertile terrain across parties. We have to remember that the Democratic Party has played a crucial role in overlapping and dovetailing anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. We have to remember that the former president of the Italian Republic, Giorgio Napolitano, was a key figure in championing precisely this kind of overlapping since 2005, 2006, 2007, the first interviews also and the first public enunciations of this overlapping between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Within the Democratic Party, we have a huge front, or a significant front, that has historically played a crucial role in producing this overlapping, and this has been done also through a distortion of Italian history and Israel's history, representing Israel's Nakba and occupation of Palestinian territories as a process very similar to the Italian process of political unification. You asked me in your question, what are going to be the effects of the adoption of the IHRA in Italy? Well, I think that the effects are going to be very similar in a way to what's going on in other countries where it has been adopted, in which, especially in universities, the IHRA has played an intimidation role, and in certain cases here in the UK, it has led to the dismissal of a couple of people from their positions, academic positions. So certainly repression against students. In Italy, what you have, if you read very carefully the Gaspari bill and the other bills which have been proposed by the Northern League and by members of Matteo Renzi's party, what you have is the radicalization of repression, I would say, especially in the Gaspari one. I mean, we're talking about 2 to 6 years of prison based on IHRA. Basically, that's what he's proposing if you read carefully the last pages of the bill. The IHRA is going to have, given the kind of historical framework that I have reconstructed very, very briefly, in which there is a certain culture of overlapping of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, the IHRA is going to have an interiorization effect, I would say. So there's going to be an official formal repression by the state, but if it's adopted, but there's going to be also a radicalization of the self-repression. People are going to probably avoid teaching, avoid speaking in public, avoid having conversations about Palestine and about the genocide if IHRA is adopted. And they're going to do it not because there's going to be an official repression in place, but because they will interiorize the effect of the IHRA. That's something that we have, and organizations which are dedicated to advocacy have demonstrated very clearly. I think about the work of ELSC and how they've shown this self-repressive effect of IHRA. And then there is the genocide. I mean, historically, the IHRA does something which is the overlapping of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, I think we have to add a further layer, which is the overlapping between anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and anti-genocide mobilization. There is a third anti, which the IHRA is going to play against, which is the anti-genocide mobilization, which has been particularly strong in Italy, as we have seen. IHRA is going to play probably like an insurance policy that in the coming years in the Italian academia there's not going to be conversations and denunciation of the genocide. Aya was reminding us how the genocide is not over, and even if the killing is going to stop, we know that the effects of the genocide, given the kind of dramatic destruction of all life-sustaining and life-saving infrastructures, is going to have effects for decades. The debate about the genocide is going to stay with us for decades probably, and so the adoption of IHRA in Italy is meant, and in other countries, is meant precisely to prevent future conversations which are going to be triggered by the persistence of the genocide, the reorganization of the genocide through other means by Israel after the formal ceasefire, and all the kind of things that we might want to discuss later in the round table. So I think I'll stop here.
Sorry, but we are working on two different laptops, so with the audio sometimes we have problem. But okay, thank you. Then we fixed also the problem with your audio, Nicola, so we could hear you perfectly at the end. All right, thank you for this first round of questions. I think we can maybe enter the second one. And so I would like to ask Donatella, since we were talking about the legacy of German guilt. Many observers argue that the politics of memory and this enduring sense of German guilt after the Holocaust have deeply influenced contemporary debates on anti-Semitism and Palestine. So how do you see this historical burden shaping also the response that were given by the German state, and specifically in relation to academic and cultural expression? And also, since you're here and I saw that you were writing a lot while the other people were talking, so if you want to add something on what has been said, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, I agree with all what has been said. I think also that we have to consider that it is not just the law being there that produces automatically an effect. For instance, we had the law which was passed against blockades and against forms of civil disobedience, and we have seen in the last weeks as so many blockades as never before. So what I mean is that we have to consider that it is a serious threat, but also that the effect can be resisted. And in fact, I think it is important also to consider the way in which this type of quite generic statement are resisted both through legal means, through the assumptions that these are inconstitutional. And so, for instance, in the German case, the type of parliamentary resolutions have been used in order to implement this parallel between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionist in a gray way, through semi-law, because this type of interventions do not allow and do not require constitutional checks. This is important because I think that in the German case, the most disruptive effect of the IHRA have been also related with all those type of moral panics, dynamics, interventions of different actors that are necessary in order then to make a law effective. So I agree very much with Nicola about the chilling effect, but I think that this can still be resisted, and that we have in Italy some broader type of resources to be mobilized against these implementations. One of which connects with your questions about guilt, because I think that what's worked very much in Italy in the last few weeks, but also in the fact that the last few weeks of the huge mobilizations against the genocide were also rooted into 2 years of mobilizations that had gone through ups and downs, but always broaden the basis of support. And I think that there, the memory of the resistance to fascism was central, because it was a memory that brought people to commitment, to believe that you have a right but also a duty to resist to injustice. The memory of the resistance, contrary-wise to some suggestions, is not a memory of belligerent type of reactions, but has been a memory against also the type of military attitudes and the penetrations of militarism within universities, within working spaces. We have in the afternoon, we will screen the documentary Portuali, which showed how also dockers, workers in different branches have followed a tradition that often was rooted also in a vision of the resistance that has taught people to do something. So resistance was a sort of different memory than guilt. In Germany, what is objective is the fact that the German state and Germany in general has been responsible objectively for the Holocaust, and therefore also the push for Jewish people to dislocate, but also for the Nakba. And the very different assumptions of guilt between these two types of objective historical guilts is indicative of instrumentalizations of guilt feelings. So I have to say also in my book, I write, I don't believe in the guilt feelings of the Germans. I don't believe in them because statistics, opinion polls shows that it is an attitude of the elite, not of the people in general. I don't believe in it because usually guilt is accompanied to a sense of, can I say, opening to criticism, while in Germany you see instead a type of memory that is imposed top-down without any type of interaction. So scholars of different type of disciplines, from Dirk Moses to Wolfgang Streeck, have pointed at some different type of cultural element. For instance, not guilt, but the typical German sense of superiority, that has been re-elaborated and strengthened after the reunifications of Germany through, among other things, through the memory cultures that was supposed to clean up the German consciousness from what since the very beginning has been presented also by intellectuals like Habermas as a breach of civilizations. Breach of civilizations means it is something that happened in a path of civilizations which was instead a positive one and inclusive one and so on. It didn't consider the fact that, as historians and other scholars, Michael Rothberg is one of them, mentioned, is that the Shoah was the huge crime against humanity in Europe. But other people, like the migrants that are now accused of being anti-Semite, have lived through very similar type of big crimes against humanities, from the millions of slaves that have found dead and persecutions to the colonial type of crimes. Through these memory cultures, the German elites are proposing a vision of superiorities, which is, however, also rooted into what I experience also at the universities as a very provincial type of attitude. So what Janis Grimm and others has defined as the typical German solipsism, the tendency to see it only through German eyes. So just to give an example, Merz, after the proclamations of a ceasefire, said, well, now we don't have any longer any need to intervene on the type of sanctions against Israel, as if a genocide was something that was pardoned forever. So it is, I think, not guilt, but it is another issue that I found as very rooted in the German cultures, which is the authoritarianism that is embedded in a series of regulations and cultural elements which have reemerged now. The thereafter democracy, that is the idea of a democracy that protects itself through emergency situations, to the fight against what Livio Pepino, an Italian judge, would have called the penal law of the enemy. So that in order to defend itself, the German democracy has to deny democratic rights to part of its citizens. And it is the conformism, because I think I saw the faces here when the colleagues from Munich was talking about the degree to which repressions went into Germany and the degree of silence, something that we didn't experience in the Italian situations, in which I think is deeply embedded in this broader tendency to conform, which has been there in the newspapers with extremely rare exceptions, and has been there in the academia. There is a sense of there is a degree of double standards in Germany, by which, for instance, all people present themselves as outraged because the University of Rotterdam disinvited Hillwitz, but they didn't say a word about the firing of Nancy Fraser, for instance. I take them because they are two Jewish people. So it's a degree of conformity that I think has to be explained through the memory culture, but also through the lack of reflections on alternatives. I want to stress again, I don't think it is the German people. I think it is the German elite that found in this memory culture a way to be clean from their own responsibilities, not only for the Shoah then, but for racism in Germany now, which is extremely high, which is supported by all parties, including the Greens, which are among the most racist party in Europe, I think. And it has been connected with the statement by Merkel and then by all politicians that the security of Israel is a raison d'etat for the German state. But it is also supported then by a brutal implementations of repression that a colleague from Munich was talking about. The universities have cancelled hundreds of talks, among which in Munich, Francesca Albanese's talk, and they have taken all the most different type of excuses related with security issues and others. So I think there what counts is also the spreading or the still rooted Humboldtian definitions of academic freedom, which excluded extramural academic freedom, so which assume that the academia has to be neutral and academics have to not to speak about hot issues, but it is then also fear. So I think that there is a huge amount of fear and cowardice. That's also Wolfgang Streeck has mentioned in an interesting articles about this. The fact that so-called progressive newspapers, but also so-called progressive intellectuals like Habermas have supported the raison d'etat, stating that it is not for Germans to criticize Israel. It is supporting this type of vision. So I would say not guilt. Some people said it is not guilt, it is rather an envy and a desire to be involved in genocide. It is to be mentioned that this is the third genocide that Germany participated in or led. But again, I think it is especially to be analyzed as a move in the elite and an elite that is using brutally the police, because in Berlin is even worse than in Munich in terms of harassment of people, cancellations of talks at universities, but also type of repressions of protesters in the street. Stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donatella, also for giving us a glimpse of hope in how to resist the adoption of this definition. I would follow the order that we had before, so I would pass to Alice. And if you like, I would like to ask you something more about the reports that you developed. So also if you give us some insights of the main findings of these reports. If we manage, I would ask you to stay between 7-8 minutes, so then maybe we have some time for questions. So thank you, Alice.
Sure, thank you so much. And quickly to respond also to what Professor Della Porta was also saying, what we've noticed, what we've observed is talking about Israel critically, you're accused of basically falling into this trap of polarization. So they love to put what's happening, even the genocide, in a lens of it's just a classic case of religious polarization or political extremism, and you're, for talking about this topic, considered kind of an extremist or radical. This we've experienced. And also quickly on it's moral superiority, not guilt. I mean, I have a really good example of this happening with another colleague who's in the Twitch stream. We attended one very small event that wasn't publicly promoted of a professor from Gaza, Professor Wessam Amer, who came to speak. And it was kept secret because he was talking about scholasticide, but somehow we found out about it. And he gave this presentation and he was talking about his colleagues that he'd lost in the genocide, family members, friends. And the first response from a senior professor in political communication, who I'm sure you will know also, was to talk about not understanding the German context. So this professor from Gaza just said, basically, please, can you try to commit to some basic BDS principles? And the first response is always, but you don't understand the German context. And I think the audacity to look someone in the face from Gaza who's lost people and to say this just kind of really summed up how profoundly messed up this and pervasive this this moral superiority is. So yeah, it's good for the blood pressure, I'd say, dealing with these people all the time. But anyway, in terms of our reports, just to stick to time, so we have, as I said, we've published 2 reports, and we're working on a third one. In our first report, which was published last November 2024, we basically covered TUM and the LMU's collaborations with several universities across Israel. I will briefly mention 3 main cases that were the most troubling. The first being TUM's collaboration, the TUM Architecture Department's collaboration with Ariel University. So Ariel University is based in an illegal settlement in the occupied West Bank, which violates international law under the 4th Geneva Convention and UN Resolution 2334. And there were even protests against Ariel University and this campus in Israel, right, in Tel Aviv. So that tells you kind of how extreme this is. And TUM posts job advertisements, which they advertise as in the Tel Aviv district that were actually based in this illegal settlement. They run workshops and collaborations together. They've been working since 2024 on a project basically that they removed evidence of when our report went live. And notably, this department, this architecture department at Ariel University, published a strategic outline plan for the land of Israel west of Jordan, 1948 to 2048, where it's basically a plan for Israel's occupation expansion, right? And luxury homes as part of this expansion. This is the department that TUM is collaborating with. There's also 2 other particularly concerning examples. So TUM worked on a project called Project Cornetto. So the Institute of Flight Dynamics at TUM and Technion's Faculty of Aerospace Engineering, which has very close ties with Elbit and Rafael. We all know about Elbit and Rafael. And basically this project was, TUM designed a missile launcher with Technion, and it was launched at a conference with members of the IDF, Elbit employees, Rafael employees. This was already, I think, in 2022. In my notes, I didn't write down the year, so I apologize, but you can read this in our full report. Unfortunately, our website is down today, but it will be live again tomorrow. And I will gladly share these reports or these case studies I'm speaking about. And also you can see it on our Instagram, by the way. And the final case of the initial report was the Autonomous Boat Project, which was started in July 2024. So basically, the Fraunhofer Institute posted a call for TUM students to participate in an exchange program with Tel Aviv University. The project was funded by Rafael Systems. And basically, all of the mentors as part of this program were colonels from the IDF, Elbit employees, members of the Israeli Air Force, Rafael Systems employees. And yeah, it was to work on this autonomous boat project that would be used then by the Navy. The project website drastically changed again after we published the report, so the links were removed, so you couldn't see who these mentors were and all the, but we archived everything, of course. So I mean, the evidence is there, but we know the reports are effective precisely because we see the vanishing of all of this evidence as soon as they go out. And our most recent report, which was published, I believe, September the 15th this year, so not that long ago, was on a new campus at TUM Ludwig Buko campus, or rather newly expanded campus, where there's basically a concentration of major weapons companies, German weapons companies, and companies that work closely with Israel, for example, Helmholtz. And this campus is built directly on the grounds of a former forced labor camp. So the Nazis used this for weapons advancement back then. And it was basically, forced labor. It was a kind of a subsidiary of Dachau concentration camp. There is no acknowledgement of this anywhere on the university website. Absolutely nothing. So this was used by the Nazis for weapons development. Now it's being developed as a European defense tech hub by TUM, with no mention of the fact that this is built on the land of a forced labor camp. And there has not been a peep from the university. There's not been a peep from a single colleague since this has been published. We did get some attention in international press, but absolutely none from, I lie, I think Junge Welt said something, but basically within Germany, it's tumbleweed. And it's not that, believe me, it's not that we didn't send this out to every journalist we could. It's just completely overlooked. So yes, that's a summary of the reports, and I can't remember what the end of the question is, but basically we just want to provide this concrete evidence because we hope that this will give us more leveraging power to get the universities to change, and also to spread this outside of Germany, to put the pressure on the universities, because there are so many international law breaches and potential international law breaches to mention. I would also briefly add, before I stop, because I'm aware it's like 7 or 8 minutes, everything we collate is from the universities' websites, from their LinkedIn accounts, from their social media. This is like a collation of stuff that they proudly posted and continue to post. So we're not doing much digging, and we get a lot of repression, but it's kind of like everything we're doing is effectively holding a mirror to the university. So yeah, that's all I would say on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Alice, for the examples and the work that you are doing with these reports. And what you share now, I think, at least for us in the room, was pretty shocking. So really, thank you. And since I'm also part of RUP, maybe I would suggest that this will share these reports and also the link in our mail list, so everyone can be updated on your work. And then I really wanted also to share our solidarities as a researcher and people that work at university, because what you're doing in that specific context is particularly challenged. So whatever we can do also for help in terms of transnational alliances and cooperation, we are here. So thank you. Okay. As for Aya, we were undecided. So because we were discussing with Paula and Gianmarco about other possible questions to you, because on the one hand, we wanted to hear a bit more about your work and your academic work. So since you focus mainly on peace studies and women in security, we would like to ask you also how this was in some way useful to understand the current situation of women during the genocide, and what pathway toward justice can actually be, in your opinion, take, considering also women roles and involvement moments in conflict. But on the other hand, some of us were also curious of if you had any updates on the situation on the ground right now. So what your colleagues, for example, from Gaza are saying about the situation, if children has actually returned to school, and what are the conditions of now going to school, and if you could tell us which are the most urgent priorities at this stage. I know these are very, and I think you can pick the one you prefer and share whatever you want. Thank you.
Okay. About the rule of women in peace and security. Before the genocide, I was believing in these words. Like, as I said, I wrote my thesis and my baccalaureate degree about the rule of women in peace and security according to the Security Council Resolution 1325, Palestine as a case study. And in that time, after my research, I discovered that the women in Palestine, they helped a lot our community to rebuild our community and our institution. But we don't involve them, or the system, the international community don't involve them in peace building or peacemaking. And usually we don't talk about their security and safety in conflict zone. So in West Bank and in Gaza, the woman faced a lot of violations that it was supposed to be protected from it under the international law. But we see like the international law, it's not for all the countries, not for Israel, not for USA, not for EU, not for a lot of countries. During a genocide, I was working with displacement people in shelters. In the same time, I was displaced in a shelter. And when I saw the women waiting in a line for beds, it was like so painful for me as a woman to understand, because I studied all these international agreement that talks about our rights, our dignity as a woman during conflict, in the conflict zone. And then I said, okay, but we as a Palestinian, we have to continue playing with this word by the names of international law to get the maximum of our rights. And until now, I'm trying to study all the violations that women faced in Gaza, not just from legal perspective, also from psychological perspective, because it's so important to understand our women who will rebuild our community again. If I want to talk about the situation of women in Gaza right now, it's the same also during the genocide, because it doesn't stop. I was talking with my friend, she's pregnant with 5 months, and she's in the same time working with MSF, Doctors Without Borders, as a promotion officer. So she said to me that the situation, it's the same. They don't understand anything. If we want to focus about not just the woman, but the people in general, Israel right now, they allow to some kinds of food to enter Gaza, like chocolate, chips, soda, and these kinds of food that make you more fit, to send the picture for the world outside that look, they are with a good healthy, but they don't allow to Israel don't allow to to enter the meat, vegetables, fruit, and all the vegetables and the fruit in the market, they are in the boxes, which is with a lot of disease. It's another kind of genocide. So if I want to talk about this system of food for women, pregnant women in Gaza, it's literally so hard to describe. For the children, it's the same. For men, it's the same. So about the education system, what is exists in Gaza right now, it's a small tent, small spaces of education with a lot or a huge number of students and the children in a small spaces that they are trying to educate them with a like weak tools with like there's literally no tools to educate this student, and this education, this system that was developed during the genocide, it's not recognition by the state of Palestine because it's not governmental system. So we will not like we know that our children, they are not going to the next level. Like if they are in like the secondary school, they are not going to high school or yeah, it's something just to save the educational system for the children with a very weak tools. Uh, who are working in these spaces that they called it like child-friendly spaces. They all of them, like almost, they are volunteers. They are young people. They are volunteers. At the same time, they have a family. They have to take care about them and so on. A lot of women, they are trying to involve their children in these classes, but at the same time, the children, they have a responsibility during the genocide. They carry a big responsibility to provide water, food, medicine for the families, for themselves. So it's a complicated situation until now. Living in a tent until now, it exists. Like there is no houses in Gaza, no building. So until now, all the families living in a tent, and I cannot describe how much living in a tent, it's unhuman and it's stole from you your dignity. I lived in a tent for more than 1.5 years. Imagine you are during your period, you are sleeping on the ground, you don't have enough medicine, painkillers. It makes you feel like you are not equal with any woman outside Gaza because you are just a woman. And I recognized that when I arrived here to Italy also, because right now I have home, I have everything that I want, but my family, my sister, they don't have all of this. And this makes me feel more guilty. Like I want to I don't know. I'm trying like for all my friends, I'm sending for them all the scholarships that is available in this time for the Palestinian. And I say for them, okay, apply here and here and here and here, because it's not easy to survive and your beloved one, your friends, your family are still there. The genocide, it doesn't stop. Israel control more than 55% of the of Gaza Strip. The other part, like 45, it's under control of them also. And if I want to choose something to say that it's a priority to start from it, we have to stop the genocide in the first step. we have to fix our health system because we are literally destroyed. Until now, I cannot eat well at all. My stomach, like, I'm here from 4 months, and my stomach until now cannot understand that, like, many kinds of food. We have to get back our human feelings, to feel again that we are a human being, because we lost this literally. When you see your, like, my sister Rula, when she did not recognize the apple, like apple, she said, "What's this?" Because she lived 2 years without any kind of vegetables, and this stole your feelings as a human being. Imagine this: the children, they growing up in a tent, they don't know what is the meaning of door, window, room, living room, bathroom. All of this makes us feel like this is our reality, this is our life, and nothing it's gonna be changed. So we just have to stop the genocide in the first step, and second, we have to get back our feeling as a human being. This will come by supporting health system, education system in Gaza, and to rebuild our community again, because the community in Gaza, it's literally destroyed. When you go to the American Aid, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and you go there, and you will go back to your family or you will not go back to your family. That's mean that you are accept the meaning or the idea of death. So our community, our people right now, they are dealing with themselves as a people who will be killed in any time. We have to get back our trust in the life and the word, to rebuild our community again. Because if you know that you are going to be killed in 5 days, 10 days, 1 month, you will not take care about the community and the family and the future. You will say, okay, I will live this moment just. So we will have to get back the value of life, to be able to rebuild our community again. Yes.
Thank you very much, Aya, for sharing again these notes, these reflections, and in particular your experience. It was very moving and touchy. And I agree with you that what we can definitely do on the one end is for sure, I mean, ending complicity with Israeli universities, as we are trying, and this was also the whole topic of this week of mobilization, but also continuing in pushing for scholarships and trying to find way to actually enforce also this part of academic freedom for people that cannot access academia. So thank you. And now we end with Nicola with the very hard task of concluding this panel. As Paola was mentioning, if you could also start answering one of the questions that come from the audience. Let's see, where is the question? There is another aspect that could also be exploring greater depth the instrumental use of accusation of antisemitism by Israel. The person in the audience understands that this has been a deliberate propaganda tactic in the past. Recently, it has overflowed with extraordinary effects. So the person in the audience is asking if there are any specific studies on this matter. And since we are about to close, I also would like you to tell us something more from an international law perspective, since you are an expert also in this field, an evaluation of this, the current truce and ceasefire in Gaza, and so how can we also go on from here? Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you for the questions. Answering the first one, the political mobilization of the question of the Holocaust and anti-Semitism is part of Israel's history. There is a beautiful book by Edith Zertal, The Holocaust and the Politics of Nationhood, which is precisely one of the masterpieces of this reconstruction of the state mobilization of the accusation and the memory. I think that things, whereas in the 60s, in the 70s, Israel was like, I remember Abba Eban and the idea that withdrawing from the 1967 territories would have been a repetition of the Holocaust, right? The state was very active in that, in the production of that political discourse. I think that then things changed, and in the last decades especially, Israel has constituted a transnational civil society network of, and here we have to use Gramsci to understand it, of civil society organizations which are both parties and international NGOs which are doing the work for Israel in other countries. So I think we have to understand how Israel has evolved into a proliferation of what Lara Sheehy in the volume I've co-edited on Palestine and Western Academia has defined as settler colonial outposts. There is a proliferation of organizations in different countries, in the UK, in Germany. In Italy, it's small parties. We have discussed the Gaspari and the right-wing parties doing the work for Israel of politically mobilizing anti-Semitism and the accusation of anti-Semitism. So we have to understand the evolution of transnational Zionism and as a protection of Israel's regime of domination. And I think that it's not just the state anymore, but it's the state and its ramifications in different contexts. So I hope that answers a little bit the question of the evolution of that problem. Regarding the ceasefire and where we are, and the politics of international law, or where is international law? The ceasefire is what Rifat El-Arir, a poet and professor of literature in Gaza who was killed. The ceasefire for Israel is I seize, you seize, I fire, right? So we are seeing that Israel is trying to establish a new regional model of ceasefire, according to which there is a more or less an agreement, like in Lebanon, but there is free hand and the possibility of continuing to bombard and to implement military measures in spite of the ceasefire. So I think that the meaning of ceasefire is being restructured in the region. It's about the region, it's also about the Mediterranean. Think about the flotilla. I mean, Israel want to have free hands also in the Mediterranean and bombard humanitarian vessels which are crossing the Mediterranean. So it's really a different kind of order, the one that Israel is trying to establish under the curtain of ceasefire. What is going on is very clear. Israel wants to have a control of all the territory inside the yellow line, which is a line which it has traced in the midst of Gaza, trying to appropriate 54% of Gaza's territory. The US administration is promoting a plan for what it calls a new Gaza, so rebuilding, but rebuilding as a strategy of counterinsurgency. Many of you in the room might remember the Strategic Hamlet program in Vietnam, in which the US administration tried to separate the insurgents from the population. What is going on is that Israel and the US administration are saying we're going to rebuild within the yellow line, within the 54% of Gaza that we are fully controlling and fully occupying now, and we are attracting the Gaza population to come to us and separate them from Hamas. So the strategy is very clear of this ceasefire. The ceasefire is a reorganization of some of the settler colonial plans of appropriation and annexation of Gaza. International law has failed the colonized historically, and we know it. What happened in the last 2 years is that some cracks happened. South Africa going to the ICJ was a crack in this linear narrative of international law failing the colonized and failing the subjugated. There was a chance, there was a hope for a possibility with the cases at the ICJ. There was more hope with the ICC issuing arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant for some of the crimes which were perpetrated in Gaza. But as we know, international law is very slow. Probably the ICJ is going to take a final decision in 2027, 2028 for procedural reasons. I believe, if you want my opinion, that in spite of the fallacy, in spite of the fact that international law is going to be slow, I think that anti-colonial and anti-apartheid history teaches us that that terrain cannot be abandoned. So I believe that in spite of the fallacies, there is a value in continuing to mobilize international law and trying to appropriate it. This is what, if you look at anti-colonial history, anti-colonial groups did in 1977, and it's through the attempt of fighting by appropriating international law that certain kind of basic rights, like the right to resist in all forms, including through armed resistance against colonial occupation, was institutionalized within international law. So I think that precisely for what we were saying at the beginning, in order to respond to the what's going on with IHRA, to the attempt to silence anti-genocide resistance in the coming years, it's going to be crucial to continue keeping alive the struggle also within the legal field, because that's a crucial field of legitimacy within an international legal framework, which is going to provide those who are trying to resist with crucial ammunitions to respond to the kind of state and non-state silencing which we are going to face in the coming years. So I think that that's my feeling about possibilities to do things also through the law.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicola. I see that we have a question from the audience, but we have 4 minutes. Okay, and then 1 year from our room. So now I read the question that is mainly for Donatella and Alice. And so about the so-called anti-Deutsch movement in German leftist spaces, and about the sense of guilt and superiority of Germans translates into them believing they are the experts in genocide, and also how they define the Holocaust as the worst genocide ever because it was perpetrated by white Europeans against white Europeans, while ignoring all the other genocide and that ever happened that were instead perpetrating against colonized people. Maybe it's more a comment, but still, if you want to say something. And then we have a question from Federica here. You need to get that
See, no, maybe it's more a comment than a question. And first of all, thanks to all the speakers. And I would like also to share my sincere gratitude and solitude and solidarity to Aya and the Academic for Justice Collective. I would like to spend a couple of thoughts on the Italian situation, because I think that what is going on, and Federica was saying at the beginning, is quite linked to what has been what is going on in the relation among governments and universities and the academic system in general. It's something that started in the universities since the Meloni's government started with some cultural attacks on, for instance, gender studies, and then went on with the attempt to involve the intelligence services within universities. And the Gasparri law, it's like the last but not the least, maybe, attempt to attack universities. And what is going on in the school system, it's something very similar. I would just cite what has happened in the last days, not the first and not the last attack, an internal training organized by teachers about peace education was cancelled, scheduled for tomorrow, was cancelled by the Valditara minister, saying that it was not respectful of the minister guidelines, and we are talking about education and peace. And I think that we should really try to answer to why this is going on. And I guess as a personal reflection, that this has not only to do with the fact that we are having an authoritarian government, and is not only linked to the fact that the Western countries are experiencing several authoritarian governments, but it's something that has to do also with the war and warfare context we are experiencing, at least in Europe, saying that schools and universities and education systems as a deep and profound also help war and warfare in an intellectual and cultural and ideological way. So giving government to strictly govern how school and university works gives space to war thinking, war ideologies, and war justification. This is just I guess a part of the a possible answer, but I guess that we really need to think, reflect, and try to understand what is going on, generally speaking, linking universities and schools all together. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fede. I think that since we are very much running out of time, every speaker maybe has 1-2 minutes to answer very briefly. So go, Donatella.
Yes, thank you for the questions. I just wrote an article on what is wrong with the German left, in which the anti-German play an important role. It is a very German phenomenon, even though they are called anti-German. They come as a split within the K-Gruppen in Germany that is very sectarian groupings in the German left that's mobilized against also the German reunification, based on the assumptions that Germans are fascist, and that therefore also the shelling of Dresden didn't go far enough in killing enough people to clean the situations from this. This is why they're called anti-Germans. But in their very sectarian and peculiar development, they first started to support the United States in 1991, especially in the war on Iraq. And then they became fanatic supporters not only of Israel, but especially of the army. So they usually make posts in which they consider the IDF as the hero of the anti-fascist struggles. What is more, they are active, even though they are a small, very tiny group. They have an influence, for instance, on the Tats and on other so-called left, because they are by now clearly right-wing. They organize events together with far-right, fascists, neo-Nazis, and so on. And they also organize the doxing of pro-Palestinian activists. They organize physical aggressions against events in solidarity with Palestine. They would be just a crazy small groups if it wasn't for the fact that they are able to play this type of influence. Formally, they present themselves as reflecting on materialist thinking against capitalism, but they organize events with the von Hayek foundations on ultra-liberalist type of position. I just can say that I agree about the second part of the questions, that the definitions of the Shoah as a breach in a civilizations which is supposed to be poor, clean, and effective is already a way to define a type of memory of the Holocaust as a very individualized type of historical events that does not is not used in order to take more universalistic lessons. And I think it is also important to locate all these things that we address today, all this development, also within the transformations in Israel with the 2018 Basic Law that strengthened the exclusive nationalist character of Israel, defined as related with the rights of sovereignty only of the Jewish people, which also imposes more and more inequalities within the countries, but which also present itself as the representative of the diaspora. And in fact, it is related with the activity of the minister for Israeli minister for diasporic type of issues, that all these type of policies, from the very definitions of the International Holocaust Remember Alliances to all the moral panic that have been at the basis of repressions, are launched. And there is a request for bibliographies. I think the work by Dirk Moses, by Sintre Bangstad, by also, of course, Maya Wind on the repression within Israeli academia is important contribution to think about these issues.
Thank you, Donatella. Alice, if you want to add something on this?
Very quickly, I can add something. I think, yeah, Professor Della Porta did a very comprehensive summary of the anti-Deutsch initially there, which I would just add quickly. Like, I mean, it's really a psychologically interesting case, that whole group. They've been the reason that we haven't had solidarity from all of the groups that you would typically expect, and that we have witnessed express solidarity in basically every other country. I mean, unions, but also like, decolonial groups. They have a lot of influence. They infiltrate groups and put this pressure on, and basically isolate anyone who's kind of expressing any kind of solidarity with Palestine. So they've done a lot of damage, but I think their power is slightly weakening now. Some groups are taking, like Fridays for Future, for example, have changed their position after 2 years of genocide in Germany, which is, abhorrent. But And the other thing I would just add very quickly, I don't think it's been mentioned so far, is that a general point, relativization of the Holocaust is a crime in Germany, right? And we've spoken a lot about, the specific laws and definitions, but this just makes it almost impossible to talk in any way, it's illegal to make a comparison, to highlight any parallel. Well, what space is there for any kind of discourse or dialogue when this is the case? Is absolutely crazy. So yeah, besides legal apparatus, I mean, yeah, it's just basically very difficult to with this context. Sorry, I didn't summarize that very quickly, but I'll shut up now. Thank you. Oh, we don't hear you, by the way. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alice. I was wondering if maybe Aya and Nicola want to add something for closing.
For me, like I said, maybe all what I want to say, but I just want to say that don't stop talking about what is going on, because what is the media trying to showing you, it's not the reality. So we have to listen more for Palestinian voices from Gaza, from West Bank, to know what is going on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nicola?
No, I think what Aya said is the most important thing. So we'll stop with, I'll stop here.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening and for being here with us. And I wanted to thank you particularly Paola Rivetti and Gianmarco Giovannardi, who helped me in organizing this session. It was for me really enjoyable and an honor to be also the discussant of this panel because of the things that were raised. So thank you, and thank you, Rup, for organizing these events and giving us this space and platform to being able to discuss these important issues. So thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Grazie a voi.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Especially Federica for chairing the panel. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.